passing touchdowns. Now, this is where Matthew Stafford dominates over everybody, not just Drake May. Matthew Stafford's number one with 35 touchdowns. Welcome to Just the Stats, NFL Top 10's for Thursday. My name's Ernie Jennings, and we have a football game tonight. Looking forward to that game. And actually, I'm always looking forward to any NFL game. I'm already, shouldn't be this way, but hate the idea that the season's already, 3/4 of the way done. But that's all right. We still got all the way to February. We'll have January, a lot of playoffs and everything. And we're getting to the point where these games make such a big difference one way or the other. Most of them do. So that's exciting. And today we are going to look at top 10 power rankings after week 14. See what's happening. See who's number one. I have a new number one. Despite the fact that the team at number one did not lose, I still have a new number one. I just had to do it. And so we'll go through the top 10. And then after that, we'll look at some of the season leaders this year so far. And we'll go through some of those, see how far we get in the next 30 minutes or so. All right. First up, top 10 power rankings after week 14. You know what? I think I'll start this from the bottom and work my way up instead of from number one down. I have two new teams in the number 9 and number 10. Number 9 is Los Angeles Chargers. They're 9-4, and the Buffalo Bills are back in it. Both of these teams have been in and then out. I think Buffalo maybe a couple of times, but they're back in it at 9-4. Now, both of these teams have big games. Los Angeles Chargers are playing the Kansas City Chiefs at Kansas City. And obviously, Kansas City can't afford to lose any more games. And the Chargers are a wild card team, so they really can't afford to lose if they want to stay in the playoffs themselves. So that's a big game. It's hard to say. I mean, Chargers should be able to beat them. Now, Chargers beat them, which started off Kansas City's year in a rough way. Chargers beat them the first game of the year in Brazil. So can they do it again? This time they'll be in Kansas City, though. So the Chargers are going to have their hands full. And it's really going to depend, I think, a little bit on how Herbert's hand's doing, how well he's playing. But this is going to be a big game. I mean, Kansas City needed to win last week, really needed to keep on winning, and they didn't. So I just don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I hate trying to predict some of those types of games. And the same goes for the Buffalo Bills. They're 9-4. They need to stay in the playoffs scenario, and they can't really afford to lose. If they have any chance of catching New England, they got to beat them this week. Now, it's in New England, so the Buffalo Bills are traveling to the Patriots Stadium this week. Big game there. We'll see how good. I don't trust the Bills. They've won 9 games, but the teams they're beating, I should rather say the teams they keep losing to are good teams. So we'll see what happens. But New England's got a good team. We'll see how good they are. Have they been beating up on people that are lesser opponents? So this is a good test for both of these teams to see how good their team is at this point in the season. Now, for New England, win or lose, they're still going to be in first place in their division, and it'll just be a little closer for them as far as that goes. So, but for Bills, they really do need this game. All right, number 8, San Francisco 49ers moved up 2 spots. They're 9-4. Now, they play Tennessee at home. They should be able to win that game handily and move on and continue to move forward. They'll be 10-4. And for them, they are not out of they're in the playoffs right now, but they're not out of this race for the division lead. They're only a game behind the Rams and the Seahawks. So any slips by the Rams or the Seahawks, and they have a chance to actually move into first place, believe it or not. Considering the injuries they had throughout the season, 9-4 for them has really been good. Number 7, Chicago Bears dropped 2 spots after losing to the Green Bay Packers. I was wondering how long it would go, and when you look at the Chicago Bears, they're 9-4. Man, they actually have a negative points against them. It's interesting that they continue to win. Their defense is just not that good, but their offense is pretty good. So they've been able to win games. And the key for them, honestly, actually, when I think about it, is they lead the NFL in turnovers. They create more turnovers, I should say, than any other team in the NFL by quite a good distance. So I think they've already, as a team, have something like 17, 18 interceptions. We might see that later. So they really produce a lot of turnovers. Just regardless of how a team might be moving up down the field against them, ultimately they're expecting to have a turnover, and they seem to get it. Now they play the Cleveland Browns, a team they should beat, playing at home as well. So they should be able to win and continue hanging in there. And again, they're only a half game behind the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers, which we'll talk about in a minute, if they lose and Chicago wins, we have another flip-flop at that point, as well as the fact that the Detroit Lions are 8-5. They're not in my top 10. I put them in, they lose. So then I drop them back out. But Detroit Lions are right there behind both Green Bay and Chicago. So it's very tight. Number 6, Jaguars moved up 3 spots after beating the Indianapolis Colts. And they were winning that game when Jones went out, and I think they would have continued to win no matter what happened to Jones. They just really dominated both offensively and defensively, racked up 30-plus points, and held Indianapolis to 13 points until late in the game when they had their backups in. Indianapolis scored one more touchdown, but it still was not a close game. So the Jaguars move up 3 spots. Now they play the New York Jets at home. They should win that game. And here's another one where they need to continue winning because Houston Texans are only a game behind, 8-5. Now, Houston Texans was another team that I considered putting on here, but, they've lost 5 times, and I just couldn't put them up in the top 10, but they're right there, say, at 10A, 10B, or something like that. And if they win this week and any of these other teams that are 9-4 falter, well, then we could see the Houston Texans move into the top 10 for the first time this year. I mean, their defense is incredible, but their offense is what kept me from putting them into the top 10. Their offense is just not good. Not a good running back. They got Nico Collins, but Stroud is inconsistent. Their offensive line is not good. And so I just didn't put them in the top 10. So Jaguars, number 6. Number 5, Green Bay Packers. They moved up 3 spots. They're 9-3-1. And I wanted to, in some ways, put them a little bit higher, but I couldn't do that. But they have a good chance this week of doing that. They play the Denver Broncos, who I have at number 3. So Green Bay, I don't think either team that loses, unless one of them just gets slaughtered here in this next game between Green Bay, who plays at Denver, if one of them gets beat very badly, they might drop quite a ways down the list. But if it's a close, tight game, I'm not going to drop them too far if it's really that close of a game. But Green Bay Packers have been steadily moving up. They finally got their act together early in the season. Man, they were losing games they had no business losing. So, but they seem to be righting the ship and getting things in order and are looking pretty good right now. So they're number 5. Number 4, Seattle Seahawks, 10-3. They've been consistent, and I just keep them behind the Rams, who are also 10-3, but are in first place in that division. So Seattle Seahawks are number 4 at 10-3. They play Indianapolis in Seattle. Now, this was supposed to be a huge game, but right now it looks like it's probably going to be Seattle should win this game. It's in Seattle, and who knows who the quarterback is going to be. Tomorrow, if it's true that Phillip Rivers may be the starting quarterback coming out of retirement after 5 years in retirement, I'll have a quick little spot telling you the stats of Phillip Rivers. I mean, he's a great player. He's a Hall of Famer. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame at one point, but still, he's 44. I mean, he's older than Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers at least has been playing and staying in playing shape. So I don't know. I just can't even believe it's true that he might actually be the starting quarterback against the Seattle Seahawks. But we'll see. By Friday, hopefully by Friday, I'll know one way or the other what the odds are there. So number 3, I dropped down one spot from number 2 to number 3. Denver Broncos, even though they didn't lose, but they're 11-2. They play Green Bay. This is one of the biggest games Denver's had in a while. Now, they did beat the Chiefs. That was a big game, obviously, but this game against Green Bay is really going to show how good they are and whether it was right for me to drop them down a spot. Same goes for New England Patriots, who I dropped down one spot. But if Denver beats Green Bay, they are legitimate. I mean, they're legitimate at 11-2. I don't care who you're playing. To win 10 games straight is an accomplishment. To have your team up game in, game out. I think Sean Payton's did an incredible job. He doesn't really get mentioned as much and for Coach of the Year, but it's very possible he could end up that if he continues on winning games the way he's been winning. Now, Denver has a little bit of a tough schedule in their last 4 games, and starting with Green Bay. So big game for Denver at number 3 right now. Number 2, New England Patriots. They dropped down one spot, dropped from number 1 to number 2. They're 11-2. They didn't lose either, but I still did the drop. They've won 10 in a row. And again, I'll admit that I'm wrong dropping them down if they beat Buffalo next week. I mean, this Sunday, I should say. That's a big game for New England to prove that they are as good as they appear to be. So we'll see what happens, but that will be fun to watch. Buffalo needs this game big time, and they're going to go all out to try to beat the Patriots. But the Patriots have a good team offensively and defensively. And May has been incredible. If it wasn't for Stafford, he'd be my MVP, I think, at this point. With 4 games to go, he still could end up being that person. But I still think Stafford's number 1 quarterback, which is why I have put Los Angeles Rams at number 1, despite the fact that they're 10-3, which is a game worse than the Patriots or the Broncos. The Rams are just so good right now, and I know they lost to the Carolina Panthers. But when I watch these teams play and I watch the way Stafford and that offense just surgically move up and down a field, and their defense is really good, I just felt like the Rams are just the best team. So I moved them up to number 1. Now, I'll be proved wrong. They're playing Detroit, who really needs this game. Detroit's a game back of Green Bay, game and a half behind Green Bay, and a game behind Chicago, and they're not in the playoffs at this point in time. They're right on that edge. They need to beat the Rams to stay in playoff contention. So this is a big game for Detroit. You've got 2 really good offenses going here. So we're going to see how good Detroit is, if they can put up one of their better performances versus some of these other games where they just don't look good. And I think a lot of it depends on Goff. Man, sometimes he's just, I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of his because of the fact that the pressure seems to get to him. So we'll see if that's true or not. But big game for them. And of course, the Rams need to win too. They're tied with Seattle for first. Any loss by them, and they'll drop out of first because it's very likely Seattle wins their game against the Indianapolis Colts. And so Seattle will go to 11-3, which means the Rams really do need to win this game. And San Francisco probably win their game against Tennessee. They'll go to 10-4. So the Rams lose, they're 10-4 all of a sudden. Now, it's not affecting them as far as being in the playoffs, but right now the Rams are the number one seed in the NFC. So they would have a bye. They would drop them out of that position. So it's a big game for both teams. All right, that's a look at our top 10. I got the Rams number 1, and we'll see how that fares. A lot of those teams have some huge games this week. All right, let's shift over to looking at some season leaders. We'll start with passing yards. Now, Drake May was number 1, but they had a bye week last week, so that gave Dak Prescott, who had a big game, who really has a big lead now, and everybody's on the same level now. Everybody's played 13 games. So this, from now on out, the stats will be consistent as far as how many games each player has played. But Dak Prescott leads the NFL in passing yards with 3,637, which is 225 yards better than Drake May. So really, Dak Prescott has a pretty good lead over everybody in this category. Now, as I was mentioning, I think May's been excellent, and I think Stafford right now is my MVP. So Drake May and Stafford, as far as yards throwing go, Drake May's number 2, Stafford's number 4, but they're only separated by 58 yards. So it's pretty close there. In between them at number 3 is Patrick Mahomes. Not his best season, though. So just been, man, he had 3 interceptions last week. Interestingly, the top 10 quarterbacks stayed the same from week 13 to 14. Nobody new came in to the top 10. It's rounded out by Justin Herbert at number 10. And Herbert started off the season in the 1 or 2 spot and has consistently dropped down. He's down to number 10. Very possible he drops out of the top 10. And, of course, number 7 is Daniel Jones. He will drop out since he's not even playing. So we'll get a new player in here for sure, at least one next week. All right, next category is passing touchdowns. Now, this is where Matthew Stafford dominates over everybody, not just Drake May. Matthew Stafford's number 1 with 35 touchdowns, 13 games, 35 touchdowns. So, he's averaging 2.5 touchdowns a game right now. Jared Goff for the Lions is second with 26. He's tied actually with Dak Prescott. They both have 26 passing touchdowns. Pretty interesting that Stafford and Goff, who switched teams, still playing both of them at high level. Probably been pretty good trade for both teams. Obviously, the Rams think it's a better one for them because they have won a Super Bowl. But 2 really good quarterbacks there. Now, number 4 is Drake May at 23. So he's 12 touchdowns behind Matthew Stafford as far as that category goes. Then this is a crazy one because, like I mentioned, in the passing yards, no new players jumped into the top 10. And yet, in passing touchdowns, we've got 5 new players that jumped into the top 10. I don't even know. That's awfully strange. Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Jordan Love jumped in at 22 touchdowns. And then Aaron Rodgers and Baker Mayfield came in at 20 touchdowns. So top 10 rounds it out with 20. So Matthew Stafford from first with 35 has a 15 touchdown lead over the number 10 players. He's been impressive with these touchdowns. Man, every game. Now, interceptions, same 2. They had good games, both of them. I shouldn't say good games. They didn't throw in interceptions. That's Tua Tagovailoa for the Dolphins, Geno Smith for the Raiders. Both of them stayed at 14 interceptions so far this season that they've thrown, which is still number 1 by 3 over 3 players. Trevor Lawrence has 11. Now, he didn't throw any last week either, so that's good for him. Now, Sam Darnold, Justin Herbert, both had an interception, so they're now at 11 as well. So those three players are at second highest behind Tagovailoa and Smith. New players on this list, Patrick Mahomes, with those three interceptions, jumped up to tied for sixth with 10. We got 5 players with 10 interceptions. So really, you got everybody's at 11 or 10 who's on this list except for Tagovailoa and Smith at 14. Also new on the list was Dak Prescott. He's got 10 as well, to join Josh Allen, J.J. McCarthy, who has 10, who hasn't even played some of the games, and then Joe Flacco, who also has not played in every game. He's got 10 as well. He'll drop off this list next week since he's not playing anymore. But you got two of the best quarterbacks, or considered that way, Mahomes and Allen, on this list of interception leaders, with a bunch of other quarterbacks that you don't typically see them on the same list with. You don't typically see Matt Mahomes and Josh Allen as interception leaders. Now, when it comes to being sacked, Cam Ward was just dominating this category, but has slowed down a little bit. He only was sacked once last week, so now he's tied for the lead with Geno Smith at 49. Geno Smith is not having a good year, leading in interceptions. Now he's tied for the lead in quarterback sacked at 49. I mean, he had 10, and then he had something like 7. He had 3 more this week. He's up to 49. 2 of them. Justin Herbert had another 7 sacks, so he's at 45. 7 sacks, and they won that game against the Eagles. That was a huge game for the Chargers, especially. They really needed that, and I was really rooting against them, but they won. So good for them. Drake May, 40 quarterback sacks. Those are your top 4, and then there's a big drop down to Trevor Lawrence at 5th with 32. That's an 8-sack drop. New on this list is Jacoby Brissett for the Cardinals with 29. Now, I think they lost one of their offensive linemen, so he could be seeing a lot more sacks coming his way. He does like to hold the ball because he does throw it down the field, and which he's really been, despite losing, Jacoby Brissett has looked pretty good. Obviously, he can't control what the defense is doing, but offensively, they've looked pretty good, functional offense. He's been racking up a lot of passing yards. He'd be in the top 10 easily if he'd been playing every game so far this season. He might even be number 1 at the pace he's been throwing. And then also on this list, these are quarterbacks that you always expect to see in the playoffs doing, that kind of a thing, vying for Super Bowl. So you don't see them normally on the quarterback sack list. Josh Allen, 31 sacks, 3 more sacks. Patrick Mahomes, 29. Lamar Jackson, 29 times, and he hasn't even played every game. Jalen Hurts, 28. So these are some of your better-known quarterbacks in the top 10 as far as sacks go. All right, let's shift over to rushing yards. This is getting much tighter. Jonathan Taylor slowed down a little bit, while James Cook has been on a pretty decent pace. Now, they both actually were close. I think Jonathan Taylor had like 72 or 74 yards. He had 74. James Cook had 80. So pretty close, actually. A little bit of a gain. But these two players, Jonathan Taylor, merged those two names, but Jonathan Taylor for the Colts leads the NFL in rushing yards with 1,356. So he's averaging over 100 yards a game still. James Cook for the Bills is second with 1,308. So he also is averaging over 100 yards a game. Now, those two have a big lead over Devon Achane, who's second with 1,126 yards. So Jonathan Taylor has a 230-yard lead over at chain, and Cook has 182 yards. So those two players, Taylor and Cook, have a big lead over the rest of the NFL. Bijan Robinson was fourth, but they didn't play, so he stayed at 1,081, and Devon Chain jumped over him. Now, new to the list, who was on the list 2 weeks ago, dropped off last week, or I should say 3 weeks ago, dropped off last week, and is back on now. Travis Etienne is number 10 with 917 yards. Probably in the same with the receiving yards as well, but probably after this week, if not all of them, all the players in the top 10 will be over 1,000 yards. Probably at least 9 of them will. Right now, 7 players have more than 1,000 yards rushing, and we've got 3 here with over 900 yards. So good chance that 1 or 2 or 3 of them make it into the 1,000-yard club. It's not as big as it was in the past when you only played 14 games or even 16 games, but now with 17 games, you're not talking much over 60 yards a game average to get to 1,000, which is why when you have Jonathan Taylor and James Cook, that's really the benchmark. They're averaging over 100 yards a game rushing. That's really impressive. Now, for Jonathan Taylor, he could be overtaken by Cook because without a quarterback for the Colts, man, any defense is probably going to be focusing on Jonathan Taylor very specifically, much more than they were in the past. Cook has the advantage of having Allen in the backfield with him. So teams have to pay a lot of attention to him, which often helps James Cook out. Same type of thing that happened last year with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, where Henry just racked up all those yards, but you had to keep an eye on Lamar Jackson. And so it really is to the advantage of the running back, and that's going to help Cook, I think. I honestly think that Cook may overtake Taylor at some point. Now, rushing touchdowns. Well, this is still Jonathan Taylor by a decent amount. Had one more rushing touchdown last week. He's now got 16 rushing touchdowns, which ties the best last year. 3 players had 16 last year. Which one of them was Jahmyr Gibbs, who's second? He's got 13 so far. He had 3. He really made a move up this list with 3 rushing touchdowns. So he's now second with 13. Jahmyr Gibbs for the Lions, that is. Now, Josh Jacobs had 1. He had been in second. He's now tied for third with Josh Allen. They both have 12 rushing touchdowns. And then Derrick Henry has 10. He was up there at 16 last year, I believe it was. And then rounding out the top 6, Javonte Williams has 9, because then you have 7 players with 8 rushing touchdowns. So Jonathan Taylor is dominating in this category. He has been all season. And I think I mentioned it yesterday, but he's got 4 games where he's had 3 rushing touchdowns. No one else has more than 1. He's just been impressive. If he hadn't slowed down initially halfway through the year, he was one of my MVP candidates, but he's really tailed off, and I think it's going to just get worse for him, unfortunately, for him and the Indianapolis Colts. All right, rushing yards by quarterbacks. Well, now Josh Allen is took over first place last week. Big game he had again. He had 78 yards. He's now in first pretty handily over Justin Herbert, who's second. Josh Allen has 487 yards rushing as a quarterback. Justin Herbert second with 419. And then Patrick Mahomes has 407. Justin Fields, who hasn't played in quite a while, and this is the only reason these other 3 are ahead of him, is still fourth with 383 yards. So he's hung in there despite not playing. Now, Jackson Dart's coming back to play. He's 6th. He had been pretty high on this list as well until he got hurt and missed some games. I think he'd be right up there as well if he'd been playing consistently. And Baker Mayfield, new to the list, the only new player on this top 10. He's got 285. So big drop from Josh Allen and to Baker Mayfield over 200 yards. And now moving over to receivers. Do run through this quick. Trey McBride now has pulled, well, he was in first place last week actually as well, but he's got 93 receptions this season. Puka Nacua has tied him, though. He was 2 behind, now tied with him at 93. They both have 93 receptions this season. I expect one or both of them to hit the 100 reception mark. Jamar Chase is third with 91. He'd be first, obviously, if he hadn't gotten ejected and then suspended for 1 game. Jackson Smith-Njigba for the Seahawks is fourth with 89. And Christian McCaffrey still in the top 10 as far as receptions go with 85, despite the fact that he had a bye week last week. Still number 5 on this list. No new players in the top 10, interestingly enough, which is not to say the same thing when you're looking at receiving yards. Again, just like the rushing yards, it's a lot of 4 additions to the receiving yards. Really strange. But Jackson Smith-Njigba is dominating. Jackson Smith-Njigba for the Seahawks has 1,428 receiving yards so far this season. Well over 100 yards a game. Puka Nacua is second with 1,186. Made a move on him a little bit, but he's pretty far behind right now. He's still 242 yards behind to even have a chance to catch Njigba. I don't see that happening, actually. Just mentioning it. Now, George Pickens dropped a little bit. He was in second. He's third now with 1,179. I don't know how far he's going to drop either. I don't know what his attitude was last week, but we'll see how he plays. I just don't know what to think about him, and I don't know what the Cowboys are going to do with him after this year. He looks so good sometimes, but last week he looked like he had no interest in what was happening on the field in a very tight game. Also for the Cowboys, I didn't mention it, but in receptions, Pickens and Ferguson, their tight end, are in the top 10 as far as receptions. When it comes to yards, Pickens and now CeeDee Lamb premieres on the top 10 at number 9 with 865 yards. His first time on there. And, he missed some games. So now you have Pickens and Lamb both in the top 10 as far as receiving yards go. Nico Collins for the Texans, Zay Flowers for the Ravens, CeeDee Lamb for the Cowboys, and Devontae Smith for the Eagles are all new players to the top 10. One dropped out was Christian McCaffrey, the only running back who'd been in the top 10 in receiving yards. He still is in receptions, but no longer in the top 10, just out of the top 10 as far as yards go. So right now you have 4 wide receivers with 1,000 receiving yards. And Amon-Ra St. Brown only needs 24 this game. You have 3 players who need less than 100 yards receiving to move into the 1,000-yard mark. So we'll see what happens this week. All right, we'll do one more category, and then we'll call it a wrap, and that's in receiving touchdowns. And this is a category dominated by Davante Adams, despite the fact he did not have any touchdowns, which I think he'd been on a 4-game streak with a touchdown, but he didn't have one last week. Even though Matthew Stafford threw 3 of them. He tried to hit Davante once, but just didn't work out. But Davante Adams has 14 receiving touchdowns to lead the NFL by 5 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and T. Higgins all have 9 receiving touchdowns, 5 behind Adams. Got a couple of players. Pickens again. Now on this list, you got Pickens and Ferguson as well. Pickens has 8 touchdowns. Ferguson has 7 receiving touchdowns. So 2 Cowboys on this list. I'm looking, and I don't see any other team that has 2 players from the same team. So Davante Adams, I'm looking to see if he can move up this list and maybe make it into the top 10 all time in the NFL as far as receiving touchdowns go. Needs to get a few more. All right, that's a wrap. that's everything we've got. You heard my power rankings. I got the Rams number 1. Comment if you don't think that's right. Feel free to do that, and I'll listen. I'll respond back if you have any comments about that. And then we've got some good numbers, good races. I love this race between the wide receivers as far as who's going to be the most receptions this season, and the same with the running backs. Can Taylor hold off Cook as far as the leading running back? We'll have to watch and see. It's going to be tough, I think, for Taylor to hang in there. But you never know. He's a great running back. He might have some breakout runs that would really help him out. All right, appreciate you listening. Please like and subscribe. You can find this podcast on YouTube at Just the Stats NFL. There you can like and subscribe. You can comment on the podcast. Also on that video version, you'll see the charts. You'll see my top 10 power rankings, all the charts that I've mentioned about the top 10 season leaders. You'll see all that on Just the Stats NFL on YouTube. Also, you can listen to it on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple, whatever app you might use. And you can always contact me at justthestatsnfl@gmail.com if you'd like. All right. Enjoy the game tonight between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. Big game for Tampa Bay to hold on to first place there. So we'll see what happens. All right. That's a wrap for this episode of Just the Stats NFL Top 10s for Thursday. I'm out.